Welcome everyone to the Deep Dive, especially for all of you joining us from different corners of the globe, our expat community and global viewers. We know you like to stay connected, stay informed on the big U.S. stories that, well, make waves everywhere. Today we're diving into a story that's really captured worldwide attention. It involves a truly major figure in American entertainment. It's a narrative that's been unfolding with some pretty dramatic twists and turns, honestly, and it brings us right up to the edge of a really pivotal moment.
That's exactly right. Our goal today is to walk you through a comprehensive timeline, and we want to be, respectful and unbiased about it. It covers the legal proceedings involving Sean Diddy Combs. We want to get you completely up to speed on all the major developments because, well, the jury deliberations in his trial, they're set to kick off tomorrow. Our mission here, like always, is to pull out the most important pieces of information, the key insights from, all the credible sources we've looked at. Think of it like a shortcut, really, helping you get properly informed without getting bogged down in just the sheer amount of noise out there. We'll navigate the key dates, the big developments, focusing on what really matters to understand this pretty complex situation.
Absolutely. And as we go through this really intricate and evolving story, we want you, the listener, to maybe keep some questions in mind. Like, how do these events actually reshape how we see someone who, for decades, was really at the top, in terms of influence in American culture? And what does it all mean for everyone, especially those who maybe grew up looking up to his impact in music, fashion, business? It was significant.
Yeah, these aren't just legal points, are they? They touch on something much bigger. Culturally. This deep dive, it's going to explore exactly those questions. We'll look at it through the lens of image, power, and that whole concept of personal branding that's so huge in American celebrity culture. Because Sean Diddy Combs, he wasn't just a name. For a very long time, he was like an institution.
That's a really good way to put it. An institution. We're talking about someone seen as one of the most influential producers, executives, in, hip-hop history. A 3-time Grammy winner, a major force in business, fashion, known by all those names over the years. Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. More recently, Love. His reach was just huge.
It really was immense, his public profile, before all this started. I mean, Forbes had him topping their hip-hop rich list, 2014 and 2017. That shows the financial side, the cultural weight. And then Fashion 2004, he got the Menswear Designer of the Year award. That's a big deal from CFDA for his Sean John brand. Shows it wasn't just music. And his business ventures, like his big partnership with Ciroc, the beverage brand, and co-founding Revolt, the TV network, that cemented him as this multifaceted entrepreneur. His brand touched almost everything in pop culture. And it's that really high profile, that carefully built image that's now facing this unprecedented level of scrutiny.
Okay, so let's unpack that history a bit, because before we get into the recent events, the ones that really shifted everything, it's important to say, right, this isn't actually Combs' first time dealing with the legal system or, intense public attention.
No, not at all.
His past legal issues, they're different from what's happening now, of course, but they do sort of hint at this longer history of legal tangles, public controversies. It kind of sets the stage.
That's a really crucial piece of context. It shows, a pattern maybe, a pattern of a very, very public figure, often dealing with legal challenges, public spectacles. Take, for instance, way back in December 1999, that incident at Club New York in Manhattan, very high profile. There was gunfire. Combs was there. Jennifer Lopez was his girlfriend at the time. She was there. Rapper Shine. Combs ended up facing charges, weapon possession, trying to influence a witness. But ultimately, he was found not guilty on all those charges. Shine, though, he was convicted on some counts.
Right, I remember that. Shine took the fall for a lot of it, publicly at least.
Exactly. And separate from the criminal side, there was a civil lawsuit later. A driver claimed emotional damage. That got settled February 2004, I think. Terms kept private, as they often are. But that whole incident, even with the acquittal, it put him right in the spotlight for a really high-stakes legal situation very early on in his massive career.
So, over 2 decades ago, he was already navigating these kinds of intense headline situations, maybe setting a sort of precedent for how things would go. What else? What other challenges popped up over the years?
Well, moving forward a bit, 2003, his Sean John clothing brand, it faced some pretty serious allegations about its supply chain. The National Labor Committee, they're a nonprofit focused on labor rights, they reported that factories in Honduras making his clothes were allegedly breaking local labor laws. The claims were quite specific. Involuntary pregnancy tests, restricted bathroom breaks, forced overtime, very low wages, things like that.
Wow, okay. How did he handle that? That sounds like a potential brand killer.
He responded publicly quite strongly. said he was pro-worker, committed to fairness. He launched an independent investigation, and by February 2004, reports indicated things had improved at the factory. They mentioned air conditioning, better water systems, and crucially, allowing workers to form a union. So that episode showed an early example of his business practices, the ethics of his brand coming under really intense scrutiny, and it required a very public, very direct response.
It really does sound like this pattern of intense scrutiny, public and legal, has been almost like a constant background noise throughout his career, even before this current storm.
Precisely. And it wasn't just criminal matters or labor issues, business disputes too. It shows him constantly navigating these complex corporate and legal areas. Like in 2003, Kirk Burroughs, who co-founded Bad Boy Records with him, sued Combs, alleged he was coerced into giving up his shares, threats, intimidation. That case eventually got dismissed, 2006, I think, because of the statute of limitations. Basically filed too late.
Ah, okay. So timing was key there.
Yeah. And then more recently, other things. 2021, Combs actually sued Sean John, the brand he started, saying the new owners were using his image without permission after he sold his stake. And then 2023, he filed that racial discrimination lawsuit against Diageo, the big spirits company he partnered with for Ciroc. He later dropped that suit, January 2024, and they ended their business relationship. So you see this constant stream of legal business fights. It highlights this ongoing navigation of business, celebrity, and the law.
And weren't there other, maybe less major, but still public things?
Yeah.
Just adding to this overall picture of someone often in the legal spotlight.
Yes, exactly. Just to round out the historical picture, in 2005, there was that trademark issue in the UK. An artist there named Richard Dearlove had been using the name Diddy since '92. Dearlove won an injunction, so Combs couldn't use Diddy in the UK. That's why you often hear him called P. Diddy over there.
Oh, I never knew that was the reason. Interesting.
Yeah. And then, 2015, he was arrested after an alleged physical altercation at UCLA involved his son's football coach. But those charges were later dropped. Lack of sufficient evidence, they said. So when you look back at all these past events, they're varied, sure, different outcomes, but they definitely set this historical backdrop. A public figure very frequently, almost constantly, in the legal spotlight under intense media scrutiny.
And it's right there, that historical pattern we've just laid out, that things took this absolutely unprecedented turn. It became a storm that maybe nobody, maybe not even Combs himself, saw coming. This is where the current huge wave of legal challenges really started to change everything for him.
This is absolutely where things escalated dramatically, and just the speed of it was astonishing. November 16th, 2023. That's the date. A civil lawsuit was filed by Cassie Ventura, the singer, his former long-term partner. Total bombshell. The lawsuit, it described the relationship, which was long, like 2007 to 2018. It used terms like a cycle of mistreatment concerning personal interactions and exploitative arrangements. The claims were detailed. Allegations of physical and emotional mistreatment, coerced intimate acts, even claims she was forced into encounters with other individuals while Combs allegedly filmed.
Right, and didn't it also mention something about Kid Cudi's car?
Yes, exactly. A specific allegation that Combs was responsible for blowing up rapper Kid Cudi's car when Cudi was dating Ventura. This was huge. It brought these incredibly private and, frankly, really disturbing relationship dynamics right into the public eye. For a lot of people, it wasn't just another celebrity lawsuit. It felt like a reckoning. Especially given the whispers over the years, the obvious power imbalance. The details, even summarized, painted a picture so far removed from that polished public image he'd built for decades.
And the immediate result of that filing was just, wow. Less than 24 hours later, it settled. Out of court. Combs' team was quick to say, look, this isn't an admission of guilt. And Cassie Ventura said publicly it was resolved amicably on terms she had some level of control over. What kind of shockwaves did that send out? The speed of it? What was the public thinking?
Well, the reaction was definitely mixed. Intense surprise, for sure. But also, for many, a lot of raised eyebrows. Such a quick settlement in a case with allegations that serious. It naturally makes people ask questions about accountability, about how these private settlements work in high-profile cases. While settlements happen all the time in civil court, the speed here, given the gravity, was really notable. And as it turned out, that settlement seemed to open the floodgates. Almost immediately, we saw this cascade of new claims starting to surface. It dramatically changed the whole narrative around Combs. It felt like momentum was suddenly building against him.
That domino effect was so fast, so relentless. Just days after the Ventura settlement, another suit. Joy Dickerson-Neal, November 2023, alleging unlawful conduct way back in 1991. Her claims involved being given substances, then inappropriate contact, and she said a recording of it was shared without her consent.
And it didn't stop there. Another anonymous woman, a Jane Doe, filed a separate suit that same November, alleging similar concerning interactions from the early 90s, involved Combs and another man. The repetition of similar claims, even from decades past, started to paint a really disturbing pattern for the public. Then, just within a month of Cassie's suit, December 2023, a fourth person came forward, accusing Combs of unlawful conduct involving a 17-year-old back in 2003, claims of compelled intimate encounters, the sheer number and the speed. It just started to shatter that image of control Combs had always projected. This wasn't just lawsuits anymore. It felt like the public was seeing a potential pattern, one that maybe had only been whispered about before.
So boom, boom, boom. Claim after claim. An unprecedented assault on his public standing. How did Combs, Mr. Image Management himself, initially react to all this?
Well, amidst all these mounting claims, he put out a statement on Instagram, broadly denied everything, asserted his innocence, said he'd fight for my name, my family, and for the truth. He held that public line of innocence. But regardless of his denials, the impact was immediate, professionally. He stepped down as chairman of Revolt Media. That was significant. A company he co-founded, heavily promoted. His media baby, really. That was the first really tangible professional hit from these public allegations. Showed the controversy was already hurting his business world.
And the pace just accelerated from there, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Early to mid-2024 saw things escalate even further. Moving from civil suits towards, well, a full-blown federal investigation, it really felt like the pressure was just building and building.
It absolutely marked a new, much more serious chapter. February 2024, that's when music producer Rodney Lil Rod Jones filed his major civil suit, seeking $30 million. His lawsuit alleged unpaid work, yes, but also inappropriate personal conduct. Claims of physical groping, distributing substances at parties, claims he was pushed to facilitate concerning arrangements for Combs. And what made this suit stand out, legally speaking, was that it named other people, Combs' son Justin, various record labels, and accused them of operating as a RICO enterprise.
RICO. Can you explain this quickly? That sounds serious.
It is serious. RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. It's a powerful federal law originally aimed at organized crime. It lets prosecutors target people who commit crimes as part of an ongoing criminal organization. It comes with very heavy penalties if proven. The defense naturally strongly denied all of it, called the claims pure fiction.
Then came that moment that was just all over the news globally, the raids. That really shifted the narrative from civil disputes to a potential criminal case.
Oh, absolutely pivotal moment, March 2024. Those images were everywhere. Federal agents, specifically Homeland Security investigations, raiding Combs' mansions, LA and Miami. News helicopters captured it all. You saw Combs' sons, Justin and Christian King Combs, looking, clearly affected by this massive police presence, visibly shaken. Authorities just confirmed it was part of an ongoing investigation. Later reports linked it to allegations of unlawful conduct involving individuals. Combs' lawyer shot back immediately, called the raids a gross overuse of military-level force, a witch hunt, said Combs was being unfairly targeted. And then, adding another layer, at the Miami airport, Opa-locka Executive Airport, an associate of Combs, Brendan Paul, who was actually mentioned in Lil Rod's lawsuit, he was arrested. Charges related to possession of controlled substances. Lil Rod's suit had called Paul a facilitator of illicit substances for Combs. So that arrest just fueled the public narrative.
And the legal trouble started touching his family directly too, right?
Yeah.
In April, his son Christian was named in a suit.
Yes, April 2024. A lawsuit filed against Christian King Combs, Diddy's son, but it also named Diddy as a co-defendant. It alleged concerning personal interactions with a woman on a yacht chartered by his father. The claim was that Diddy created the situation that led to the alleged incident and then helped cover it up. It definitely brought the situation even closer to home, involving his children directly in the legal allegations. And then came another huge impact moment. May 2024. This one was visual. CNN got hold of and published surveillance footage from 2016. It showed, concerning physical interactions between Combs and Cassie Ventura in a hotel hallway. This video was incredibly significant. Why? Because it visually seemed to back up descriptions from Ventura's lawsuit. You could see him pursuing her, engaging in aggressive actions. It matched what her lawsuit described.
That video.
Yeah.
That had a massive public impact. It wasn't just words on paper anymore. Millions saw it. How did that specific visual evidence change things? What pressure did it put on Combs?
Monumental impact. For so many people, it turned abstract allegations into something concrete, something undeniable they saw with their own eyes. It really shifted public perception. It wasn't just he said, she said anymore. There was visible evidence underscoring how serious the claims were. The pressure on Combs was immediate and intense, and his response was quick and actually pretty unprecedented for him. 2 days after the video came out, he posted an apology video on Instagram. He said he was truly sorry, called actions inexcusable, took full responsibility for what was shown in that video. But even with that rare public apology, the allegations kept coming. Another lawsuit landed in May. A woman alleging inappropriate personal interactions from over 2 decades ago, claims of being compelled to take a substance, engage in illicit intimate acts.
It really felt like the consequences were starting to spread beyond just the legal system. Institutions started reacting, chipping away at his public legacy.
Absolutely, in a way that few public figures ever really experience. June 2024, the institutional backlash really took shape. It signaled a wider societal rejection of the conduct being alleged and, in the case of the video, seen. Howard University, historically important Black university where Combs had studied, maintained ties. They officially cut all ties, revoked his honorary doctorate, ended his scholarship program, and notably returned a $1 million donation he'd made. Their board stated his behavior was fundamentally incompatible with Howard University's core values and beliefs. That's strong language, a powerful symbolic move.
Wow, returning the donation too.
Yes. And then, literally the next day, New York Mayor Eric Adams formally asked Combs to return the key to New York City, an honor he'd only received the year before, in 2023. These actions showed a really significant, very public erosion of his standing, his civic recognition, his philanthropy.
And yet, even with all that, the lawsuits just kept coming.
They did not slow down. June 2024, an inmate, Derek Lee Cardella Smith, filed a suit accusing Combs of concerning personal conduct. Initially, there was a default $100 million judgment because Combs didn't respond, but that got reversed later. There were issues with how the lawsuit was served, meaning he wasn't properly notified legally. Then September 2024, Dawn Richard, the singer, former member of Danity Kane, the girl group Combs created, she filed her own lawsuit. Alleged years of psychological and physical mistreatment, inappropriate personal touching. And crucially, she claims she actually witnessed Combs concerning physical interactions with Cassie Ventura. That added another high-profile voice, someone who worked very closely with him, to the accusers.
Okay, let's pause here for a second. As you look back at all these events we've just covered, the initial lawsuits, the federal probe, the apologies, the institutions pulling away, how did this start to really reshape the public's view of Diddy's legacy? It feels like it moves so far beyond just music and business, right into these deep questions about conduct, accountability, power. Host speaker. And actually, speaking of support, if you appreciate content like this, calm, clear, and culture-savvy deep dives, we'd really love your help. We're trying to reach our next big milestone, 1,000 subscribers right here on the Merida Magic YouTube channel. Expert speaker. Yeah, it would mean a lot. Just hitting that like button, maybe sharing this video with a friend who'd find it interesting, and subscribing, of course. It helps us keep bringing you this kind of analysis from anywhere in the world. Okay, back to the timeline. Right, so the public perception shift. How deep did it go?
Oh, it shifted dramatically, maybe irrevocably. The whole narrative flipped from, the self-made icon, the mogul, to someone primarily defined in the public eye by these incredibly serious allegations. It forced this widespread reevaluation of his entire persona, his brand, his history. It's complex, painful for many who admired him. And this leads us to the most significant escalation, the criminal case itself. September 2024. This development cemented just how serious things had become. Combs was arrested at the Park Hyatt Hotel in Manhattan. Soon after, the federal charges were announced. Racketeering conspiracy, that ARCO charge again. Unlawful conduct involving individuals by force, coercion, or deception. Transportation related to illicit personal arrangements. These are extremely serious federal charges. If he's found guilty on the most serious counts, he could face, potentially life in prison. He pleaded not guilty to everything, and notably, he was denied bail multiple times. That signals how the court viewed the charges, the potential risks.
And that arrest seemed to just unleash even more civil lawsuits, right? Like the criminal charges somehow validated the earlier claims for some people.
It certainly seemed that way. October 2024, attorney Tony Busby, he's a well-known civil rights lawyer, announced his firm had fielded thousands of calls. Said they were representing numerous plaintiffs against Combs. The claims were wide-ranging, allegations involving minors, coercion, use of substances, even claims connecting to historical events involving other big names in entertainment. Combs, through his team, strongly denied all of these new, varied allegations, but the sheer volume just showed how intense the scrutiny had become.
And it became even more personal, didn't it? With his family stepping in publicly to defend him. His mother made a statement.
Yes, that was quite striking. In a very rare public comment, Janice Smalls Combs, his mother, released a statement. Defended her son. She called the situation a public lynching. lamented that he was being judged before having his day in court to prove his innocence. It added this really personal, familial layer to the whole public saga, an appeal for empathy, really. Also in October 2024, another lawsuit, Thalia Graves, alleged she was lured to a meeting back in 2001, given a drink she believes was laced, subjected to concerning intimate interactions, and alleged a video of it was shared around later. The claims just kept reinforcing this deeply troubling picture.
And the federal investigation didn't stop just because he was arrested. They were still digging, even while he was detained.
That's right. November 2024, federal agents actually raided Combs' jail cell in Brooklyn. That's unusual. It showed the investigation was very much ongoing, still gathering information even after the arrest. Later that same month, his third try for bail was denied. The judge pointed to concerns about witness influence, mentioned evidence from a version of that 2016 hotel video that Combs himself had submitted. Plus, prosecutors claimed in court papers he'd tried to contact potential witnesses from jail. That really solidified the judge's concerns. The court essentially decided he was a flight risk and potentially a danger if released.
This case also pulled in other huge names, didn't it? Showing how interconnected that world is. Jay-Z got mentioned.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these things ripple outwards. In December 2024, an amended lawsuit added Sean Jay-Z Carter, alleged concerning interactions at an after-party back in 2000 involving a minor. Jay-Z, through his team, strongly denied it, called the allegations heinous, completely baseless. That specific case against Jay-Z was later voluntarily dropped, with prejudice, meaning it can't be refiled, and then Jay-Z turned around and sued the attorney who brought the claim against him for defamation. It just shows the complex web, the legal fallout when these high-profile names get drawn in.
And still, more allegations kept surfacing, even as the criminal trial was getting closer. It just seemed endless.
It really did. More civil suits filed in December 2024, including claims from 3 men, alleging they were given substances, then subjected to concerning intimate interactions in hotel rooms or private homes between 2019 and 2022. Then, January 2025, the criminal indictment against Combs was updated. No new formal charges, but new specific details were added. Accusations of coercing 2 more women into commercial intimate acts, an allegation of threatening someone over a balcony. Combs pleaded not guilty to these new details, too, maintained innocence across the board.
His defense team then tried a pretty bold strategy in February, didn't they? Trying to reframe the whole prosecution.
They did. His lawyers argued to dismiss one of the criminal charges, the transportation, related to illicit personal arrangements. One, their argument, that he was being singled out for a racist prosecution because he's a powerful black man. They claimed no white person had faced a remotely similar prosecution for these kinds of alleged acts. That definitely introduced a very serious new angle to their defense strategy, trying to shift focus from the alleged acts to the prosecution's motives. And then, March 2025, the indictment got updated again. Still no new charges, but added allegations about forcing employees to work long hours, threatening those who didn't help with his alleged scheme, painting this picture of control, intimidation, beyond just the specific alleged acts.
Okay, so all of that leads us to the trial itself. Started just recently, May 2025. Huge global attention. Walk us through how that played out, given all the hype and scrutiny.
Right. The trial kicked off May 5th with jury selection. That's always crucial, trying to find impartial jurors. Especially tough here, with so much media coverage, so much public awareness already. Opening statements, witness testimony, that started May 12th. And remember, federal court rules mean no cameras inside, so all the public saw visually were those courtroom sketches. Talented artists capturing the key moments. The expressions.
What was the prosecution's core argument? How did they frame their case against someone so famous?
Their opening statement was pretty blunt. They painted Combs as the leader of a criminal enterprise, said he used force, threats, and coercion methodically to fulfill his desires, protect his reputation, hide his conduct, all while maintaining this very public, glamorous image. Over the trial, they called a lot of witnesses, 34 in total, trying to build their case, establish that alleged pattern of behavior.
Who were some of the key witnesses? Whose testimony really stood out, got people talking?
Well, the most anticipated was definitely Cassie Ventura. In court, she was referred to as Victim 1. She testified for 4 days, gave detailed, very personal accounts, talked about experiences of coerced, intimate acts, controlled situations during their relationship, 2007 to 2018. Her testimony was really central. She stated pretty clearly she often felt she didn't have a choice. Other key witnesses for the prosecution, her mother, Regina Ventura, gave supporting testimony. Capricorn Clark, a former assistant, described allegations about being forced to confront Kid Cudi, claims of threats from Combs. There was a personal service provider known as the Punisher who testified about alleged illicit activities. Kid Cudi himself testified about alleged threats, the car destruction incident, and the court also heard from two other alleged individuals using pseudonyms, Mia and Jane. They shared similar stories, claims of being coerced into lengthy, intimate encounters after taking substances, with Combs allegedly watching or orchestrating. Their testimonies were meant to back up the prosecution's claim of a wider pattern.
Okay, so 34 witnesses for the prosecution. A big effort to build that narrative. But the defense, their case was incredibly short, wasn't it? Like, surprisingly short for a trial like this, someone with his resources.
That's where it gets really interesting, legally speaking, and maybe counterintuitive to a lot of people, right? How could someone so famous with so much money not call anyone to defend him? But it's actually a recognized, though definitely high-stakes, legal strategy. The defense basically rests on the idea that the prosecution hasn't met its burden, that very high standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. They're essentially saying to the jury, look, the prosecution had their shot. If they didn't convince you with all their witnesses and evidence, we don't need to add anything.
Sure.
It's a gamble. But it means they don't have to put their own potential witnesses on the stand, open them up to cross-examination. It keeps their argument focused. Their core point was, Combs has an unconventional lifestyle, yes. He has flaws, they conceded that, maybe even admitted to past physical altercations. But, they argued, that doesn't automatically mean he's guilty of these specific, serious charges, racketeering, unlawful conduct involving individuals. The bar for proving those is incredibly high. So they focus entirely on trying to pick apart the prosecution's case during cross-examination, questioning witness credibility, consistency, trying to sow that reasonable doubt rather than presenting their own alternative story.
So their whole bet was on poking enough holes in the prosecution's story during cross-examination.
Essentially, yes. They spent their time trying to discredit or cast doubt on the prosecution's evidence and witnesses. So both sides formally rested their cases on June 24th. That's when the evidence presentation ended. Closing arguments, where each side summarizes their case for the jury, they started June 26th. It's also worth mentioning a couple of things from the trial itself. The judge actually had to warn Combs at one point about nodding vigorously toward the jury while someone was testifying, raised concerns about maybe trying to influence them. And it just shows how tricky jury selection is in these cases. A juror actually got dismissed during the trial, cited serious concerns about his candor, meaning maybe he wasn't fully truthful during the initial selection.
You mentioned Brendan Paul earlier, the associate arrested at the airport. Did he end up testifying? What did he say?
Yes, Brendan Paul did testify. He was identified as a former personal assistant, stopped working for Combs after his own arrest related to controlled substances. On the stand, he denied being a facilitator of illicit substances for Combs, which was the language used in Lilrod's suit, but he did admit to buying various substances for Combs on his behalf. So kind of nuanced testimony there for the jury to weigh. And just another sign of the trial's visibility, the celebrity world intersecting. Kanye West showed up in court one day to support Combs. Just highlighted the ongoing attention, the controversy swirling around the whole thing.
So after all this, months of lawsuits unfolding, the federal investigation, the arrest, weeks of intense testimony.
Yeah.
What does it all boil down to for tomorrow?
It all boils down to this. Jury deliberations are set to begin tomorrow, Monday, June 30th, 2025. This is it. The moment where Sean Diddy Combs' fate is entirely in the hands of those 12 jurors. And they have to be unanimous on each and every count. All 12 have to agree, which means if they can't reach agreement on even one count, you could have a deadlocked jury. That leads to a mistrial, and then the judge has to decide what happens next, potentially. A whole new trial. The stakes right now for everyone involved are just immense.
As we stand right here, waiting for those deliberations, let's just quickly circle back to those big questions we started with. How do these legal proceedings, all the revelations, how they reshape how we think about power, about branding, about celebrity in America? And maybe the bigger question, what does this mean for the legacy, the long-term legacy of someone who had such enormous influence? Music, fashion, business. These are the questions that are going to stick around long after any verdict. Wow. We've really covered a lot of ground. A comprehensive journey through this incredibly complex timeline. From those first civil suits in late 2023 through the federal investigation, the dramatic arrest in 2024, right up to the trial that just wrapped up. It's been fast, dramatic, and honestly at times pretty unsettling to follow. It sent ripples everywhere.
Absolutely. And as we finish up this deep dive, maybe here's one last thought for you, the listener, to consider as that jury gets ready to deliberate. What is this whole intense process? The legal scrutiny, the public's intense engagement with it all. What does it really tell us about how accountability might be shifting for powerful public figures today? And maybe more profoundly, how much can a legacy, even one as established as his, truly withstand when it faces challenges and scrutiny this deep, this widespread?
That is a powerful question to end on. The jury's decision is right around the corner.
Yeah.
We will, of course, be watching closely. Our next deep dive will definitely unpack whatever verdict comes down, the public reaction, and what it all means going forward. So stay tuned for that.